Hello and welcome to Spoken Like a Native podcast. My name is Diane. I'm an English teacher from Scotland and a devoted language learner, and this podcast is for those learning English to improve their listening and vocabulary, with episodes on engaging topics like culture, current events, history, and how languages work. If you want to improve your speaking and listening, head over to speakmeters.com, where you can take part in small group conversations hosted by native speakers. This is an amazing way to boost your fluency, expand your vocabulary, and increase your confidence by practicing with qualified, certified, and selected native speakers who really enjoy helping people. There are sessions at a range of levels for English, French, Spanish, and German, so book your first session today. Speakmeters.com. And don't forget, you can take part in this podcast by telling me your ideas for topics. Information about how to get in touch with us is in the description. Enough beating around the bush, let's get this episode underway. Hi Fabien, thanks for coming on the podcast. You have a pretty big podcast about French, so for people learning French. And I've been a listener for quite a while now, I don't know, a couple of years. And I know that you also speak several languages. So I thought we could get you on here to talk about your experience in learning English and how you find it.
Hi everyone, hi Diane. I'm Fabien, I'm French, and I've been teaching French for 3 years and a half now.
Cool, and yeah, in the last few years you've been making a podcast which also has a YouTube channel. And you do a range of different topics but speaking obviously exclusively in French, kind of everyday topics, sometimes history, but yeah, lots of different things. And I was curious to know what you did before you had this new role, before you did French teaching, making podcasts. What did you actually do?
Before being French teacher, I was working in France as a customer service advisor for an internet company, so had nothing to do with my current occupation, but I was helping people anyway.
And how long have you been speaking English?
I've been keen on speaking English since I was a kid in primary school, but I've been really speaking since I've been learning it on my own, so around 5 or 6 years.
And why was it that you actually started learning English? What was it that made it interesting for you? Would you mind telling us something about that?
Well, I have part of my family living in the USA. My aunt is French, and she moved to Chicago when she was 20 or something. And then my uncle is American, and so is their daughter, my cousin. So when I was a toddler, my uncle and my aunt would send me American toys or gadgets like TMNTs, G.I. Joes, and I even was the first kid to have those shoes with lights on the heel, you know. So I started to really like this American culture, and I wanted to be good at English to be able to understand my uncle and my cousin. And a few years back, I decided to backpack a little. So I needed to speak English. But I never felt forced to speak English. I really like how it sounds and I really like to speak it.
Yeah, it's nice to hear someone actually saying that they like the sound of English, because in general, people learn because they have to, not because they really want to. Not like with a language like French or maybe Portuguese, Spanish, they like the sound of it. But yeah, in the case of English, it's pure duty or for work or something like that, or because the world is dominated by English. So it's nice to hear someone actually appreciate the sound. So tell me, if you could, how did you learn? And are you still working on your skills now? So what do you do if you're still studying, practicing now? What kind of activities or resources, do you use?
Yeah, I'm still trying to improve my English skills nowadays. I don't make as much effort as I would like because of the lack of time, but at least I'm trying my best to maintain them. I mostly watch English videos, any kind of them, and especially made for native people and not for learners. For example, I often watch Jimmy Fallon shows, but I also watch different kinds of channels like anatomy, biology, science, fitness, language learning, and so on and so on. And when I watch something, not always, but I look up some new words from time to time. And also to improve, I try to face new challenges to speak English when they occur. Speaking right now in English is a good example. Or when I come across lost foreign tourists, I try to help them out as much as I can on the train, on the street, and so on. So I try to create those occasions to speak English.
That you want to learn, but there's plenty of people that you can meet online to practice with, and there's websites, there's Netflix, there's YouTube, there's lots of opportunities, and you have to create those opportunities as Fabien has said. So let's talk about how you actually learned English. What did you find worked for you? How did the process work? What do you find useful in learning English, and what do you find that doesn't help? And then also, if you could say, have you continued to get better and better, or have you ever found yourself getting to a point where you get stuck? So just, something you could tell us about that would be great.
Well, I can definitely confirm that national education school borrowing methods used when I was a student don't work at all. They're not efficient, and even worse, they can make people disgusted with English. But I can see that things are changing in France. For example, my niece is 14 years old, and lately she had to record a kind of YouTube video for her English classes, talking about her favorite series. And it was so fun for her to make. I could see that she was improving her English by doing things she likes. So forcing people to learn English with boring grammar drills or homeworks doesn't work, and it's even bad. While learning English with fun activities but with a little part of effort works way, way, way better. Especially for primary or secondary school students, because they don't even know whether English will be useful for them or not, so they don't see the point of learning so much boring grammar. And it's almost the same for me as an adult. I mostly learned English doing things I like traveling, talking to foreigners, consuming content, but with a small percentage of studying drills. Don't focus so much on grammar. Focus on vocabulary by listening, watching, having fun, and practicing as much as you can, and try new things.
I find my experience with learning Spanish, sometimes you just have to do the grammar drills, unfortunately, because in Spanish there's so much conjugation. You have to know the different tenses, the different people, all the different subjects that using that tense. They have a different ending of the verb, and it's very complicated. So it's necessary to practice, but there are websites where you can do grammar drills which are less boring, but still it's inevitable. There's going to be some challenge in doing stuff which is kind of challenging and boring and repetitive. That's fine. I think sometimes we need to get a little bit bored. It makes us creative if we're bored, But I agree also that doing something that's really practical, like making a YouTube video, even if you're not going to share it with anyone, you're just pretending, you're playing it. Okay, I'm going to make a video to tell everyone what I did today. That's the kind of thing people do, and they make a lot of money doing their YouTube videos. And so people can actually, I think for kids, they can see, oh, well, if I can use this language and I can talk about what I'm doing, it has a real impact. And you're not just sitting there listening to audios and repeating things. So those kind of things are great, and making friends online who speak the language you want to speak. It's a really great way to do it. So are you happy? How happy do you feel with your English, your current level, and why?
Yes, I'm quite happy because even though I make grammar or mistakes sometimes, I can be understood and I can understand. So that's the most important thing, and it brings us satisfaction and fulfillment.
If you can have a conversation and you can say what you want to say, you're really like, I wouldn't say more than halfway there. You're maybe 75% there. And I hear from students, I've had several students recently actually say to me, in very good English, in almost perfect English with a couple of mistakes, they'll say to me, you know, Diane, I can understand things, but my speaking is terrible. And they're saying this in a pretty good accent, clearly pronounced, easy to understand, without too many mistakes in grammar. And I think, like, you don't realize what you've been able to achieve. There is lots of people in the world who would love to achieve this level, even if their level is intermediate to upper intermediate. Those people who are very perfectionistic are focusing on I want to be C2. But you get to C2, it's basically, you know, you can do anything you want. That's possibly a topic for another episode, how accurate and how realistic those levels are. But people just want to get up. Okay, I need to be C2. Okay, but if you can explain what you want to explain, why not focus on something that really interests you rather than going through an exam which is probably a bit over detailed for what you might actually want to do. Because, you know, most people who speak a language as a native speaker, they don't do the depth of grammar study or vocabulary study that some students who are really perfectionistic do. And I think the main point is not to underestimate your skill once you get to that. It's important, I grant, to be realistic with what you're able to do and not to, you know, sit back and go, oh yeah, I can speak, it's completely fine. There are those people as well who speak a load of incoherent rubbish and think that they're amazing because they know a few words. But in my experience, it's very much related to your personality. So it can be a bit of a hurdle to overcome. Some people, whether it's due to their society, their upbringing, their personality, they have an issue with speaking in front of people and really don't want to make mistakes in front of people. I've met quite a few like that. They can write very well, but they're quite wary of speaking in front of other people for fear of making mistakes until they're completely sure that what they say is going to be correct. They're very cautious about actually speaking. So and that's a hurdle. That's a problem, because without the practice, without making those mistakes, you don't improve. You have to make the mistake to learn from it. Once you correct your mistake, even if you have to correct the same mistake 300 times, once it's there, it's there. And that's how we learn. It's been studied how our brains actually work. So, what do you like the most about speaking English fluently?
Having this superpower to be able to talk to a lot of people, since English is like a universal language. So for me, it's a powerful key that allows me to unlock different possibilities.
Yeah, it is a superpower. I think it's kind of underappreciated sometimes. There's a common misconception. Either you have the skill to learn a language or you don't. But it's just a case of activating that part of your brain. I think some people are stronger than others in learning languages, but with the right technique that works for you, that you feel comfortable with, then you can really learn it. Yeah, it can be a lot of fun. And what do you think makes a successful language learner?
We have to know why we learn English, and we don't have to be forced to learn it. We have to find fun activities to acquire and practice as much languages as possible.
So this next question might be a little bit academic, showing something about me, but have you noticed in your experience or anything that you've read that our genetics, type of brain that we have, or our environment, have you noticed or have you heard about that having a big impact on yourself or the people who speak several languages, in the fact that they're able to speak several languages? What is it that makes someone good at learning more than one language? Do you have any opinion about that?
No, I haven't. We just know how to immerse ourselves in languages, living in the target language, country or not. We already know that there isn't any particular aptitude, genetics, or whatsoever needed to be able to learn a foreign language. However, the older we are, the more anchored our native language is, and the more difficult it will be for the brain to embrace other grammar or pronunciation rules. But it's not a big deal. It just takes more time. So I encourage people to start learning languages as young as possible, and motivation, comprehensible input, novelty, repetition, and commitment are the main keys. And that's it.
So I know that you speak several languages. For you, what are the advantages to having that ability, more not just one extra language, but several languages?
To be able to speak to a lot of different people and to discover lots of cultures. So we can better understand the world surrounding us and be more open-minded. And that's wonderful for me.
Yeah, that's true, of course. But maybe there's some downside as well, like this idea that maybe we're devoting more space in our brain to something that we might not really use, you know? Am I going to be able to speak Russian with people every day? I don't know whether that's going to be that important, for example. I sometimes worry about how speaking lots of different languages than our own kind of uses up our neurons, where they could be devoted to something that might be a bit more practical. I don't know. What do you think about that?
The more languages we speak, the harder it is to not mix them up and to avoid confusion. And the more difficult it will be to maintain all of them. I can hear a lot of people saying that they want to speak a lot of languages, but they have to know that it's very time and energy consuming. We will need to be committed to the language for life.
Yeah, we can really mix up words from two different languages. And sometimes when I'm speaking French, I will be thinking in Spanish, not in English, in Spanish. Sometimes when I'm speaking Spanish, I'm thinking in French. Sometimes it's really confusing. But because they're two similar languages, they can be... It's almost like my brain has categorized them similarly. English resides in a different part of my brain almost because it's so central to my whole experience. But yeah, it's also very idealized, isn't it? This idea of like, oh, I'm polyglot, I can speak 10 languages. But in reality, what's the use of it unless you, as you say, unless you're really committed to it? Stick with things that you love and you're passionate about and you're going to use. And something that's meaningful for you for life, because it does take a lot. If you learn something, you do need to maintain it. So that's a really good point. So as we move towards the end of this interview, could you please tell me if you have any goals in regards to like your future with your English skills?
I would like to improve my listening skills and be able to fully understand series or movies without any subtitles. For example, lately I've been watching the show How I Met Your Mother, which is hilarious, by the way, and I keep subtitles on as a safety net when I can't understand without context. I'll pause and I look up the word in a dictionary. I don't read them all the time, but it's a goal I want to achieve so that I can turn off subtitles forever. I don't really want to pass an exam. I don't see the point for the moment.
Well, yeah, I think with the platform of working online, you have people who are going to you for their French practice. You can obviously speak other languages, so it's the point of having an exam would be often it's used to prove to a university or a workplace that you have a certain level, which, to be honest, they could perhaps more easily assess that level if they gave you a quick writing task or they have a video interview with you. They could really sort out much more quickly how good your skills are. Maybe it's also a sign of the commitment to the study. You know, if someone has achieved a C2 level in English, they've really spent a lot of time. So it's a way of filtering out the serious people from the ones who are more just kind of playing with it. But I do agree that in general that exams definitely give you a focus. So it gives you a very clear goal to aim towards. But yeah, it can be very stressful at the end of the day. And yeah, if you don't need it for your job, you don't need it to get into university, then why would you focus your studies on an exam? Because sometimes exams can be extremely boring to study towards, it's very repetitive. Whereas watching videos, having conversations with people, if you're getting corrected by people, that's the important thing. If the person is correcting your skills, your pronunciation, your grammar, your vocabulary, then you're learning. You have to be conscientious with using I would say like a less formal, a less academic technique. You do need to be quite organized, and you do need to manage your studies. Perhaps not everyone has the skill to manage their studies in that way, and they just sort of skate along and hope that they're going to improve. But if you have a strategy, then you can really progress a huge amount. So in the following episodes, we'll be talking more about what strategies you, dear listener, can use in order to improve your English, focusing on English for a while at least. So anyway, thank you so much, Fabien, for coming on and talking about your experience. It's been great to hear from you. And it's called Français Avec Fluidité. To follow Fabien on YouTube or on Spotify or any other platforms for podcasts. Great. So thanks for coming on. Take care. Bye.
Oh, thanks a lot for inviting me in your podcast, and good luck for this new adventure. It was a pleasure for me, and see you soon, Diane. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. What do you think about today's topic? Remember, you can get in touch by leaving a comment or by joining the Speak Meters community. Follow Speak Meters on Instagram and subscribe to Spoken Like a Native on your favorite podcast platform. You can also leave a comment and like the stream. Please, please, please leave a review. It really helps us to find new listeners who are looking for fun language learning content. And lastly, don't forget to head over to speakmeters.com to take part in live conversations hosted by friendly native speakers. That's all for today. Catch you next time. Bye!